Welcome to Community Cuts, live from Brooklyn, New York. We are live at 732 Washington Avenue between Prospect Place and Park Place. The greatest salon that we know in Brooklyn. Please come out and support. Please come out and support Shalon Lee. Salon Lee. So we have a great show for you tonight. We have my brother Ricky James and my sister. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Donatella. I don't get on my full last name anymore, so I just go by Donatella.
All right. Amen. Amen. It's good to hear that. It's good to hear. Well, welcome. We're going to be talking about Israel, and we're going to be talking about what's happening in the Middle East. Actually, it's Africa, and I wanted to get your views, both of you, because you are staunch leaders in Brooklyn and Kings County. So let's talk about what happened last night, early this morning, where Israel bombed Iran, and what's your thoughts on that?
I, I tend to be a little shy about topics that I'm not 100% up to the kind of things that are happening. I know in any situation where there is war, it's always, a heavy-hearted situation. What's interesting to me is our current administration saying that they want to do I'll say it like that. It's hard for me to believe that someone within Trump's administration wasn't notified or, a check wasn't ran past them first to make sure it was all right before this war actually started. Um, Trump is too hands-on. There are too many initiatives, executive orders around the protesters and limiting their ability to speak for me to think that someone didn't call the White House and ask first before it actually started.
You see, the idea of bombing and raiding and bombing came from which country?
Well, Israel is the one that started it in terms of the Let It Go. So Israel is the one that put it out there. So that's where it started.
The idea of where the money comes from. Where does that come from?
Well, I don't know where all the money comes from, but if money comes from somewhere, it comes from different governments. So that's what I know. Yeah, but if for me to do a forensic search, I'm not the one.
It is a nasty thing to see a staunch country like Israel, which actually is not as rich as other countries in this world, attacking countries striving to be something and hitting their nuclear reactor to start some type of reaction from them, which they did.
Yes, Donatella, what's your thoughts on this, Donatella?
Well, I my, my main things that I'm focused on right now, closer to home, in terms of like immigration, I I really am afraid of where we're going next because at this point, the idea is what is this administration going to say about what is happening thus far? And depending on what the U.S. says, then they're going to be preparing our military to either provide backup, right? Or either we're going to end up in a war, which we definitely do not want. So I think our president currently is out of control with the things that he's doing, and I'm hoping that he doesn't speak so loosely about the bombing so that it puts us in more harm's way. Because we have enough things going on right here in our nation not to be at war somewhere else.
Was it Pakistan, Palestine that Israel was fighting with to begin with? And now they're fighting alongside of Iran. Is it because of the people that are in Iran that causes them to bomb that country? That is no reason to tear down a country because of the people that is in their country. It's really not a good way of doing things.
You know, well, some of my thoughts is there is a place that we should, spiritually be praying for these countries and spiritually being galvanized together and asking the Most High to step in. This is our time now to come forward and step up the time in terms of speaking out to the Most High God and asking Him to come forward and not being afraid to come forward. I remember there was a movie where that people had to pray, and the Lord did show up. I forget the name of the movie right now. It'll come back to me. But I think that we as individuals, we as a community need to come together and seek the Most High God and asking Him for directions, because with nuclear war out there, nuclear heads out there, it's only God can stop it. Yeah, and no matter what they do, it's God has to step into it. So maybe God allowed this to happen. Maybe God made Donald Trump a pharaoh. We don't know. We don't know. I mean, back in the day, the pharaohs wouldn't let go
People.
The Hebrews back in the day, and he made the pharaoh look shame. So I don't know what's happening now, but I think that we owe it to ourselves to start being spiritual and not running from it, and start praying for our families and start asking God to step in. This is our time now to take the handle and move forward and not be afraid, not have any trepidations that may be in us. The greatest thing I know that love is the strongest power that we have, and so we have to put forth love. And I think that if we come out as people and not being afraid to pray with Muslims, not being afraid to pray with Christians, not being afraid to pray with Hebrews, which we are, and come together as a group and galvanize our people to say let's take it another notch. That's just my thoughts.
As a world leader, there are those that believe in God. There are those that believe like Tutu when he was in the left side of this country. Reverend Peter is always preaching, let's pray. He would stop in the middle of a UN session and would ask for prayer. There is people of that nature that turn to prayer. And some people say prayer is no time for it now any longer. So this is we have no time for prayer. They would say that and try to shuck it off and say we're not going to pray. We believe in violence. We believe in this. And there are those that do that. I don't like that type of thing. I try to keep away from a meeting in that nature.
Well, I think let's see. I think we go from one extreme to the other when we say we as a nation we should pray, and then the people, we as a nation, with violence. I think there's a medium. I don't know. I never stopped praying, right? So to say that as a nation we need to pray more, I think part of that has to do with when I was in school. You know, you said the national anthem, you saluted the flag when you began school. It was okay to talk about God. So they totally removed, unless you're, you know, in a religious school, like a Catholic school, so you don't talk about God or the Bible at all. I do believe in this day and age that a lot of people are tired of not necessarily the praying aspect, but the non-violent aspect, right? So we're living in a faster time where there's more technology. At your hands, there's more education. People are using ChatGPT and things of that nature to figure out a better strategy. I think we live in a time now where we are losing our ability to speak. I definitely don't want to see violence. There's some countries or counties where, you know, you go to Atlanta, it's like the Wild Wild West. It's open carry. Here in New York, I'm happy that we're not an open carry state. I feel like we have far too much violence as it is. I think in states where you can stand your own ground and you carry the weapon, people become even more short-tempered, right? Because the other side of it is now when you speak to someone and you raise your voice, you have to be concerned whether or not they're carrying, right? Here, at least, for the most part, people are not walking around like the Wild Wild West with a gun on them. However, given what's happening in our streets with immigration, with ICE, people who are anti-law enforcement, with police, I think prayer, whether you are Christian, Seventh-day Adventist, you are Orthodox Jewish, I think there's no unity where people meet in the middle to exercise empathy for the other person and their understanding. And that is the biggest problem we have with everything, to me.
Muslims will once be quoted as saying that this country prays with one eye open. Israel says we don't pray at all at one point in time in this country. It is something we should all turn to and be sure that it's recognized and seen why we do the things we do.
As you know, you guys, we are filming live from one of the hottest salons in Brooklyn, so you may catch some of the patrons and people working here, which I love because it's one thing to talk about community, and Community Cuts is actually a podcast that is right in the middle of the community while things are happening, and I love that.
I just want to say to you, Avatar is the name of the movie that I remember. Avatar?
Yeah.
All right. And one of the scenes, Avatar, the people said they were being killed. They were being maimed. They were being murdered. And they prayed. The blue people prayed.
Mm-hmm.
And when they prayed, God said, they're my people too.
Mm-hmm.
Both sets of people were God's people, the Most High God. But after hearing them pray and they vigilantly they prayed very hard and very deep, God said, I hear your prayer. And God made the elements, which is the wind, the air, the water, the bees, the birds, everything that's on planet Earth or planet where they were at that time, fight against the evil. And that's why I say that as we as spiritual people, we can do the same thing too. I mean, you're not going to get 100% of people coming your way and say, "Look, I don't feel like praying." Yeah, you're not going to get that. But the people that will pray and the people that will go forth with you, those are the ones that you need to have in your tribe. Those are the ones that need, because those are the ones that are going to be praying backwards, forwards, and and overseeing and everything else. But, you know, at the end of the day, everything is spiritual. Energy does not die, energy lives, and we are all energy. And we had to put the best foot forward in love, that energy, and, make it happen.
What I remember in songs and records, he took 100 pounds of clay and he made what's missing in this world. What do you think you would do with 100 pounds of clay to enhance this world?
I would create a new president.
I
That's what I would do.
I concur with that. I do. I concur. I don't know what I would do. All I know what I want to do is to make this world a better place. And whatever it takes to make this world a better place, I would try to galvanize my people and try to do the right thing to make this thing work. Because, we can't sit home and expect it to happen. It's not going to happen.
And going back to your question about 100 pounds of clay, I think I would want to construct a mechanism that allows one individual to walk in the footsteps of another. So, for example, you have people who are on the left, right, who are not sympathetic or empathetic to the struggles of Black and brown people, right? And so if there were a way to transplant that person for 24 hours in another person's footsteps, I think you would have a better understanding. Like for myself, I was born in the South. I mean, like the real South. I was born in Alabama, grew up in Maryland, went to school in Philadelphia. But I had the opportunity, my profession is tech. I worked in Tokyo, Beijing, Singapore. I visited Manila when my parents were working there. Worked in the UK, and having had that level of diversity, when I walk down the street, New Yorkers, they say they don't speak to people as they come. And what's very interesting to me, because I am a transplant, I've been here for many years, but as diverse as New York is, it's still very segregated.
Yeah.
We're in Brooklyn. You're in one portion of Bed-Stuy, one block, and all you see is beautiful brown people. You walk on another street and you see all of our considered Jewish friends, right? You go to another section of Brooklyn, maybe exit 2, Bergen Beach, and you see a lot of Ukrainians and Russians. It's still very segregated. And so, if you look at our problem that's happening with the protests in the city now, for me, I struggle with my community saying, hey, we're watching brown people being victimized by immigration and ICE. And some of our Black and brown people, other people, say to me, well, when you come from another country, you always know that you're going to get deported, right? And so what's the big deal? If you're an illegal immigrant, you should leave. But I think what people miss is under the last administration, the doors to the border were open. There was an app, a proprietary app that was created that said, hey, if you're an illegal immigrant, come across the border, but here's what you have to do in order to become a citizen.
The only charge you would get is trespassing.
Right.
Remember that.
Right. It would be trespassing, but if you registered in this app, I can't think of the name of it now, you put your information in, you start your track to become a legal immigrant. And I have my ideas about that, right? There were a lot of us don't vote. How do you get a new voter? You give them livelihood and citizenship, right? So you open the gates, these people come in. The majority of people that are being deported now are not criminals, right? And so what's going to happen now here in New York City, even as early as yesterday, they are now focusing on Caribbean people. It broke my heart. I saw a 61-year-old Jamaican woman with a 5-year work visa go to her regular appointment, and she was detained by ICE in front of her 35-year-old daughter. This is right here. And so, in being in the heart of Brooklyn, where you have Little Haiti, you have Jamaica, Trinidadians, all of these people, I think that's when Brooklyn's going to stand up. You have the same thing happening in Long Island. I don't know if you've seen in Riverdale and Glen Cove, they're showing pictures of brown kids sitting in their cars crying because they know what ICE looks like because they're watching the news.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's going to get a lot scarier. So prayer is good. I pray every day, right? I attend, my family's blended. There is a deacon in the church, and thanks to the pandemic, I will be attending Bible study on Sunday mornings for the rest of my life in Alabama, right? Every Sunday, and then I stream my father's church where I can talk to him. My mother and my stepfather are practicing Catholics, right? So my stepfather my stepfather is Jamaican.
What is your cat? What is
Right, I don't have any pets. Ooh, that was a double negative. My mom's gonna get me. She hears the stream. But my point is, I think one or two things are gonna happen throughout this presidency. We're either going to have a lot more unity for people who were not unified, or we're going to see a lot more violence. And that is the truth when you think about what's happening. And that's what scares me, not to mention if this administration is able to cut Medicaid and SNAP, which a lot of people depend on. If you take a person's access to health care, a person's access to food, which is what food stamps are, you're going to have people behaving like savages in the street. And that's from the oldest person to the youngest person, because we all need food.
I've seen walking in a person's shoes. We used to have in my church, a young adults group. We would mostly all black people. And we would play or role play the idea of walking in your brother's shoes.
Absolutely.
That was too much fun.
Especially, I imagine, with the age of young people. I remember when I was much younger than I am now. Look at your elders, and you're looking at them like, oh my goodness, they're Stone Age. But the more you have God's grace and you get to be closer to their age, the more you realize, hey, 50, 60 is really not that old.
You can see it coming, and by the time it gets there, you're prepared for it.
And I think that's what schools are missing. When I moved to New York,
Preparation.
I was so surprised to find out that there was such a high level of high school dropouts in our boys of color, which was approximately age 16.
Yep.
And so if you were dropping out of school at the age of 16, your choices for livelihood are very small. And I think last month they took away the funding for VOTEC education. And I watched these young people, I guess it's 17 to 24 or so, cry because they ripped the funding. They showed the children being pulled from the dormitories, and this is nationwide. So
the accelerated program is now up and running. This is to push you to graduate early.
Really?
So it is the vocational training. No longer. They have only the aviation, the technology, and the two arts form, design and architecture. And they do have those programs with the vocational. But now they have the accelerated program. If you wish to go out of college, you have the idea of what you want to be. Once you graduate college, they'll put you in a program and you can be through out in a year or two.
And so the question will be, the follow-up for me will be to find more about that information, because I use my platform to educate and inform. And one of the things that we're talking about before we came on the show, I'm so excited to be here. I'm also in a weekly streaming show entitled The Reset Talk Show.
Mhm.
It streams every
Reset.
Wednesday. The Reset Talk Show. The host is J.R. Giddings, who is pretty well known, like you guys, right?
Mhm.
Just like you, OGs in the community. One of the things that J.R. Giddings is known about is he used to have, and still does, a Bikini Under the Bridge fashion show that
Oh, I
happens
heard about
in
that years
Dumbo.
ago.
Yes, many years ago. I actually modeled in one of them, and I don't think he remembers. One of my fun memories of coming to New York was working in tech. You could have two lives in New York City.
Mhm.
You could be corporate professional in the daytime, and in the evening, I was Caribbean. All my Caribbean friends. So I modeled and acted as a host.
What I wanted to ask you, a bit of personal business,
Okay.
the issue of branding. I work with a partner who's a construction worker.
Okay.
He has a restaurant in Red Hook
Nice.
that we were trying to branch it out and make more money for them because
Okay.
they're in a spot where no one ever knows that they're there.
Okay.
So how do we go about getting a brand for that particular restaurant? I'm leaving the names out of it. So.
Well, so you know what's interesting, and I want you to think about that, because when you stream information, especially going live, you never know who's listening, right? So to speak that small business name here, and you are a friend just talking about the business, is not something that I want to refer to him as a serial entrepreneur. So that is someone who has a small business or brand. They may work full time. They may have more than one, right? Any brand that you have, there's multiple ways to put it out into the universe. So, for example, I have a brand in small business. It's entitled My Hungry World. And My Hungry World is a brand that was born out of everything that I'm hungry and passionate about in the universe.
Right.
So I'm a registered agent with the state, which means if you want to form an LLC or a corporation or a nonprofit, I can do that for you. If you have already established a business, which he has, I typically will talk to people about how to increase your visibility, whether it is creating online presences, that means websites, social media handles, attending podcasts. One of the things that our small businesses really don't take advantage of is getting to know your assembly member in your district.
Mhm.
If you go up to, I would say, the average Black and brown business and ask them, what district is your business located in? Who's your assembly member? Who's your senator? Who are your councilwoman or councilman? Have you reached out to your senator to have a ribbon cut? You would be very surprised to know that a lot of us don't do that.
Yeah, that's what the whole thing was about. He's too local and he doesn't know who was out there. He says he goes to the Avenue and promotes with hand flyers. Come to this restaurant. Come right down the block.
So here's what I'm going to do. I like to think of myself in the sense that everything that comes out of my mouth is $1 million deal, right?
Right.
This is our first streaming show. I want
Shark
you
Tank.
to, yeah. Well, let's not say Shark Tank, because we don't want anyone reaching out to us for intellectual property infringement or trademark infringement.
Yeah.
But I think people of color, we don't realize the amount of greatness and what I like to call social capital that we have, right? We all do so many things. And one of the things that I love about the Caribbean community is that they have something called a round robin. So let's say that the restaurant owner is functioning on his own. He probably doesn't communicate with a lot of other small business owners.
There's business up and down his block.
Well, besides that, you've heard of when they have like a crawl where Black and brown people get together and they go from one restaurant to another.
You guys did that today for lunch.
Oh, he did. So did I. Except for I also include other places. I went to a Korean barbecue restaurant that I've been wanting to go to for the last year. I made a little business yesterday with a Zelle payment. And so my deal with God is whatever you give me, I tie back to the church, but I tie it back to my community as well. So I spend a small percentage in small businesses. But for his brand, I would wonder what he's doing proactively within his community besides passing out flyers. Has he even talked to his neighboring small businesses?
Yes,
You know?
yeah. He recommended one of the bodegas in the neighborhood get an overhaul of the entire store because he said one rat. So
Well, this is New York State. You're seeing
But
seeing a
seeing
rat
is
is like a passage.
Yeah.
Well, so the other thing is, we want to ask him, is he minority certified? Right? So
What do you mean by minority?
well, let me tell you.
Go ahead.
A lot of black and brown people think it's enough to wake up in the morning, look at the sun and say, I'm a black woman, I'm a black man, or a black whatever it is you identify it as, and then you operate your business. And I'm going to say, that's not good enough. There are city and state level certifications. Most people are familiar with the term with the minority woman owned business, but black men can do it as well, right? And so what you typically do is you complete an application. There are companies that provide certification for free. You may have heard the term SBS, Small Business Solutions. I do charge a small fee to help with certifications, but you complete the certification that says you're a minority-owned business. You do it at the city or the state level. You go into a national database, and before this administration, let's say approximately 5% of every dollar, it goes into minority-owned businesses. And I will tell you all, a lot of people are not looking to vote for my guy, our current mayor, Eric Adams. But if you look at history through all the mayors before, I think less than 5% of minority certified business funding was actually going to black and brown businesses before Mayor Eric Adams became mayor. So 240 billion federal dollars coming to New York every year. Under Eric Adams, and I may be a tad bit off of the dollar amount, 33% of those federal dollars now go to black and brown businesses. And you know what's interesting, the city, you say our last mayor, Mayor de Blasio, he wasn't black enough. Now you got a really black mayor who likes to support business. He does his corporate thing during the day. He goes to small business restaurants. He goes to small business parties and brands. He talks with the everyday person.
So you're saying to get a brand, you should fill out.
You know, you're already a brand. Once you wake up in the morning, you have a name, that is a brand.
You want to publicize, get it out into the public.
Well, I'm saying if you want to benefit from federal funding,
SBS.
Well, SBS is a brand, Small Business Solutions. New York City has many of them. They're referred to as CDFIs. These are businesses that are approved by New York City and New York State to operate and help small businesses and entrepreneurs. They have federal funding. One of those businesses is like Canva. You might recognize that name. I'm saying to make your friend's restaurant more profitable, and also the salon that we're in now, if she isn't, I would recommend that she gets minority certified. Because here's an example. You're in a salon, you provide a service to the community, you do hair or you're a barber. You can very easily acquire minority certification, create a proposal to the city that says, hey, I'm a stylist, and this is a real life scenario. I'm a stylist, I make wigs or I do hair. I would love to create a curriculum where I teach other disenfranchised boys and girls how to do hair or cut hair or create wigs. And I know a person who received $1 million grant, $1 million grant to teach young girls how to create wigs for individuals suffering from hair loss through cancer and other things. Your friend, his restaurant could be minority certified. he could create a proposal for a grant that says, I want to provide food to the homeless or boys in the shelter. And because there are dollars that have to go to minority-owned businesses, he very well could get one. Do you know who is the number one receiver of minority certified funding? White women. White
I heard
women.
that before.
White women. And you think about what it means, and then let's think about our community, right?
Mhm.
In order for a business to be a minority woman certified owned business, the woman has to be a 51% owner. Now, no shade to my brothers, but our Black brothers and sisters, when they do businesses, not very many men, Black men, want to be in a business where the woman, whether she's their sister or their wife, is the majority owner.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
So that's one thing. I'm here to tell you that some of these construction companies that are owned by non-Black men, right, white men, are putting their businesses in their wives' names so they can qualify for minority women-owned businesses, right, and qualify for that funding. You know, it's
Bring me up
very-
to bring me up to the current situation today.
that is relevant today.
Yeah.
2 years ago, I didn't get to go this past year. Every year in Albany, there is always a week or day dedicated to minority certification and the importance for the Black and brown community. When you think about this administration and how they are working to get rid of DEI, which is diversity, equity, inclusion, that
Now you're up
includes,
to where I am.
yeah,
I've heard all of that. I did it with basketball.
okay,
I tried to get every park certified. The people in the neighborhood could join that park. Rutgers,
mhm,
4th Street Park,
mhm. Maybe all those things.
all those Queens, the Bronx, the Rock in the Bronx.
Mhm.
We certified all those parks. Not that I did it by myself,
Right.
but still, their parks, the basketball players were just waiting for that park to open up to
Mhm.
something new.
And it's still on. And yesterday, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, I don't know if you saw it, at the intersection of Eastern Parkway and Utica, if you do a search on social media,
Mhm.
there are video images going viral of young Black and brown girls and boys dancing on cars and sidewalks. This is the
They
last
do this stop and shop. They do that. They shut down the entire area on Friday night, and the entire street from
Oh, that's different. You're talking about something organized. I'm talking about you're walking out of McDonald's at the corner of Eastern Parkway in Utica, and there are hundreds of
that's the
teenage
same
kids
thing.
just dancing.
Thousands and thousands of teenage kids up and from the mall to the state house.
Do you know why that is?
I do not know, and I do not care. But
You cannot
I
say
swear to
Listen,
goodness, I swear.
Listen,
The
he
kids
doesn't
should be
mean that.
on their own. They're on their own. They should be on their own. They know what they're doing and why.
Mr. James, now, I'm going to remembering I'm respecting my elders, and don't let the people's hair fool you. We might be the same age, y'all don't know. But there's a difference. You can't call a child and then give them the responsibility of an adult at the same time. I do think as living human beings who are articulate and without mental illness, we are responsible for our activities. But think about over the years, the after school programs, the bands, the girls clubs, the boys clubs, the Boy Scouts. What
Free
did,
play.
wait, no. What do these children have to do in New York City now? Nothing.
Mhm.
Nothing really. So idle minds do what? Idle minds, they run amok. And so my whole thing is,
Run amok. I didn't say they were run amok.
no,
Right?
I am. Dancing on other people's property, twerking, and feeling no fear from law enforcement or no accountability, those are children who have nothing to do, nowhere to go. And when I say they have nowhere to go, and
But you asked that. Did you ask them? Did you have
no, listen. I'm telling you, because I'm in the community to this day. Atlantic Terminal Mall has a mandate that no child under 18 can come on the
They
property
get inside, no.
at all during the day. That's fine. They should be in school. A couple of weeks ago, the McDonald's at the Junction and that mall area, the kids can't go there. They can't go to Kings Highway. When I was a child, I got my first job at age 14. I grew up in Columbia, right? That age wasn't even a paying job. It was volunteer. I was mad at my mom. At the end of that little 2 months, I got a $25 gift certificate to Woodworth and Lothrop. And I remember looking at my mom saying, what am I gonna do with this? I did not realize that it was teaching me something to be an adult going forward.
Did someone tell you that they're teaching you, or you brought it to yourself?
No. So I have my mother is an African American woman. So
Right.
you can believe she told me. She told me. But even still, you have to remember when you were a child, even as conservative and productive as you are now, when you were a child, you felt invincible. You thought you would live forever. And you know how they say you're only as great as the weakest link in your circle.
Yeah.
So all of those kids now, and part of it is social media. Half those kids, I bet, were dancing and jumping up and down for social media, waiting to go viral. And the reason why, once you go viral on social media, you really don't even have to go to school. My platform right now, people don't understand that with this salon, you can create posts daily, consistently, and you actually get paid by Meta and Instagram. My platform can make $25,000 this month just from posting pictures and videos. And when you show a child that, or you take a Kardashian, right? Because these kids are growing up seeing Kardashian,
Right.
who her whole life and wealth is built on a leaked sex tape that her mother was able to market her kids at. You know, that's the thing that you're competing with, right? With these kids.
There's a point when the kids had no outlet, no way of making any money, no way of going to school. They had to get to school. They want to go, but there's no way to get to school. There was you're assigned to this school that's all the way uptown,
Yeah.
and it's not nothing but a hopeless situation sometimes. Those outlets of them being in the middle of a thriving community, just being there.
Well, do you think,
Remember when they used to arrest people for just standing on the corner?
right? Well, and they still do. Don't think that they don't. And there's truancy. I saw a video that was going viral. This influencer rated. He looks very young, and he was standing on the sidewalk. An NYPD officer walked up to him and asked him, "Hey, are you supposed to be in school? How old are you?" The influencer, black male, is giggling and making faces because he's over the age of high school. And what young people and what adults don't realize, there are people who create content for the sure sake of going viral. They're not trying to enrich our community. So you have a great deal of people who, if you read comments, snickering and laughing, not realizing that young kids are looking at this, oh, if I get a video that gets 1 million views.
Cell phone right in their
Yeah.
face.
Yeah,
Right there.
yeah.
That's all that they have. That's their
Oh,
outlet.
cell
That's their
phone.
outlet.
Well, besides it being an outlet, that's now the new babysitter for a lot of people. I remember when my mother called me with a pager in the 10th grade, and the negative connotation, oh, are you a drug dealer? No, mom, I have a beeper. And I felt like I was so cool, you
Yeah.
know? And my mother was like, not in my house. And every now and then, you know, I kind of laugh and I'm like, wow, I have a little cousin who lives in Memphis, who's about 9, who plays with his cell phone. Times change. And if we don't do anything to save our children, we can't say we don't care about them because this administration doesn't care about them. And what I thought of when I saw these kids playing like Buda Kingston Parkway, the first thing I said is, oh my goodness, I hope none of these children are Caribbean. I hope none of these children have parents who have questionable citizenship, because we now live in a time where children commit crimes and we now punish the parent, right? if ICE had shown up while those kids, and ICE is in Brooklyn,
Yeah, I see everywhere.
yeah. If
So,
ICE had shown up
Sunset
while
Park.
these kids are jumping up and down on someone's vehicle, which is a felony, because I think any
And they don't have
damage
the money
over
to pay
$300,
for it.
yeah, and so that means they would get arrested. Probably parents may be at work and not be at work, can't get in touch with them. They'll end up in Rikers.
Mhm.
One trip to Rikers, I visited people in Rikers. It is scary enough to go through the pat downs. I cannot imagine what it's like being in Rikers. I
They're
have
closing
been
it down.
there.
They're closing it
Who they been saying they're closing it down for
But
years?
still, a child is in my neck of the woods. I would invite 30 or 40 children into my home.
Yeah, be careful doing that now.
No, I first I have to know who they are. I would take a photograph. We would take photographs. We would sit and talk and let play records and music. Then they would go home peacefully.
Right.
These days, I bet you 10 to 1 there's nobody that does that kind of thing. Open their home to let the children come and play.
There are people who still do it. They're not enough.
Now,
They're not enough.
all it takes is just one. It just takes one. Believe me, it just takes one.
I
They don't
think there are
catch
people
fire.
who do
They
it.
don't catch fire.
There are people who do it. I have an advocacy element to my business. The reason why I joined the Reset Talk Show, and I joined last year, like last quarter before they took a break, I received an award in April. So they just had their 5th show. It's called the RTS Award, Reset Talk Show Awards. And my small business through the pandemic raised about $4.3 million in funding. The most difficult thing is convincing our Black and brown small business owners that a great way to generate revenue is to get a loan.
Mhm.
You know, we don't want loans. We want grants because grants money that you get that you don't have to pay back, right? The other part is getting us to open our books and do payroll the way we should do payroll. The majority, let's just say majority, a lot of Black and brown small businesses, if you walk inside the doors, and I should say people of immigrant background, because it's not just our Caribbean community, it's Italians, it's anybody whose restaurant you walk in. A lot of them will have a certain number of individuals that may be on a W-2, some that are on a 1099. And I don't know if you remember, there was a tax credit. It was the ERC tax
I
credit.
remember that.
And it was from the pandemic, and you were entitled to up to $26,000 per W-2 employee. And a vast majority of our businesses weren't eligible because we don't have payroll services. Or when it comes to accounting, we're not using a CPA. We're using Johnny's cousin's uncle's aunt
Yeah.
who says they know accounting, but they're really only using TurboTax.
Donatella, tell us, how can people get a hold of you, get in touch with you?
Well, number one, start by subscribing to Community Cuts and reaching out. I'm sure that Duke will respond, but my small business is entitled My Hungry World, and this is how you establish a brand.
Yes.
If you Google My Hungry World, you will see I own the platform on most of those. So you're talking about Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Threads, what else is there? Tumblr, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Facebook. Even if you're not ready to populate that entity, you have to create it, because on the other hand, part of what I do is I go into businesses, I look at them, I search them online, and then I create all of their accounts and wait for them to try and buy it. There's a whole big business. So you can reach out to me on any social media platform. I'm very easy.
You have a business card.
I do, and I'm very old school in the
And
sense
not as
that,
old school as I am.
you know, like I
A little
said,
bit.
don't
I
let the
still-
people's hair.
I still just a
fool you.
little bit of that modern era.
Well, so I believe in engagement. There's a term called elevator speech,
Yeah,
right?
all-
You have 30 seconds to
Everything.
sell yourself, right? For me, I like to engage with multiple touches. So I have an iPhone. Anyone with an iPhone, even an Android, can do it. I created my own contact card on my phone with all the data that I would like someone to see. And what I typically do, I'm going to show you on my phone, is while I'm speaking to a person, I'll
The
look up
gentleman
my
is supposed to
contact
come
card.
here today
Mhm.
for the issue of this very sensitive Brandon.
Brandon,
Yeah,
so this is my contact card, right? You see it has my picture, my phone number, all of my little profiles, my address. I'm
and
gonna
you
turn it.
email it to me.
Well, I'll do one step better. I could email it, but what I do is, in conversation, I send you a text so that it gets on your phone.
Right?
I walk you through, so my background is tech. I walk you through, if it's an iPhone, creating a new contact and saving it. If it's an Android phone, importing it to your device.
Or
Then
it's my device.
Then the next
His
thing I do,
device is much better than mine, so.
no, this doesn't even matter. But then the next thing I do is I call you, right? So it's in your text messages. How many times do you pick up a business card? And I have some business cards when I'm out. You take the business card, you get home, you don't even remember who the person is. So my business card also has my face.
I mean, it's back in the days, if you forget a person's face, you're doomed.
Well, it's the same thing now, right? And I don't use QR codes.
Yeah.
As a tech person and being in Brooklyn, I know both sides. So I'm very corporate, but I'm a little shady as well. So I know how you do illegal things. People trust QR codes so much now that they scan them without thinking. A QR code can be designed to do many things. I can take all your data, which is
Android don't make that QR codes.
but Androids can scan QR codes.
Yeah.
Right? And so with Androids, you always had the bumps and touch. As a tech person, I could technically steal your information for that. So I don't recommend that at all. But in sending you the card and calling you, even if you forget what we talked about, if you look through your history of your phone, in a recent call, you'll see my face, you'll see names, and then I follow up with a text. So it's very easy to get in touch with me. Everyone should do that. And when we're off the air, I'm going to share my contact information with you as well. So this is fun. I think I'm going to have to hang out with you. I have to tell you, when we were talking about a very important and very heavy topic earlier with Iran and the bombing, I was not prepared to give, a soliloquy information, right? Because I try not to talk too much about things that I'm not an expert on.
You did say that.
But when we come back, I'll have more information. Because unfortunately, that topic is just starting to trend. And Saturday, I want to end on this. One of the things on my talk show, we have a young man from Oregon. His name is Jeff Dismuke, and he was talking about King's Day, No King's Day. So I'm not sure if you're familiar.
I heard it. I saw it going through the computer, No King's Day, and there was another one. They get up and came along with No King's Day. I forget what it was.
Well, so on Saturday, people are suggested to look around your area, find the No King's Day protest and attend. But the key is to remember to be non-violent, because in a lot of these jurisdictions, especially I think it's Brevard County. Well, Brevard County in Florida, the sheriff actually gave a press release, and depending on how you take what he says, it kind of makes sense. His literal words were, if you come out and you become violent at the protest in his county, his words were, we will kill you. And so the idea is attend the protests, come out early, nonviolent, and leave early. I think what people forget about protests that are organized, someone acquires a permit. The permit is only from a specific time. After the permit expires, local authorities are then instructed to disperse the protest. And I feel like the people who organize this protest do not educate the people who attend it. And that's usually when things become hostile. Once it gets dark, it becomes violent, and no one should lose their life this weekend.
Is that through the United States? All through? Is it in the United States,
The
all
the
states.
the No Kings protest is nationwide.
Nationwide,
They already started
right.
having it in London. It's anywhere that feels like democracy is at risk, and so that's everywhere right now.
Everywhere. Okay. I like that. Thank you so much, and we're gonna definitely you're gonna be back here again. So
Awesome.
yes,
Hey,
yeah.
I survived. Woo. I'm starting fading out. Oh, you got babies.
welcome, family, to Community Cuts. We're live from Brooklyn, New York, at Salon Leahy. A magical show that we just had. We'll see you next week, live from Brooklyn, Kings County. We call ourselves the Kings and the Queens, Kings County, Brooklyn. Thank you. And let me just say this: support your local Black businesses in your current neighborhood. That's a way of allowing our money to regenerate itself. So please support Salon Leahy, support your neighbors, support your community, and make sure the money does continue to circulate throughout the community. God bless you. We love you, Community Cuts.
That's nice.
We good.
So now I can go to my normal self and my normal height. Do by taking off my heels.
Before you
That's what I love them. These are shoes I stole from my mom while I was living here.
Ray was saying he loved those shoes. I love them too.
Yeah, me too.
before you go,
I'm gonna grab this one.
that's
That's
what I want.
Okay.
I just want to put on my sandals.
Because you have amazing information that a lot of us don't have,
Right.
and we're supposed to share the information as we, and she's there.
Well, you know what's so interesting? In my business, right? My business is information, and what I am learning how to do